Welcome everyone to Heart Snuggles. We hope you're having a snuggly day. And as always, if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to share with friends and family and anyone you think would resonate with these. So thank you for being here and listening with us. And I brought a beautiful guest. So go ahead and tell them who you are.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lexi. My name is Miranda, and I am an herbalist in training. I am a curandera according to my maternal ancestral lineage, and I started Mariposa, which is a digital community platform, and apothecary to share all types of wisdoms and to give reverence to all those that came before, and yeah, provide that knowledge to share and weave into the future for all of us.
Yeah, so powerful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so much for doing what you do. And just to start off the podcast, the question is, what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
That's such a beautiful question. Um, to be honest, there's been so many, and I think of a lot about people who are in my life who provide random acts of kindness, but I want to answer it from, I guess, a stranger. But the community garden that I'm currently volunteering at, actually, I was walking by with a friend, and they just stopped us and was like, "Do you want some mint or some this herb that we're growing? Like, feel free to pick some." And it was just such a beautiful, touching moment.
I love those. Yeah. The little ones make such a big difference. And I love that you also have other people in your life. And it's funny when I ask that, I don't say a random person, but people always assume that it's a random person. It could be anyone.
That's so true. I was like, random person, where it just all associated.
It's so normal. So yeah, tell us how you got into this business you created and where it started.
Long story short, I went through a lot of experiences that led me back to just connecting with nature and earth, and kind of weaving all of those experiences together. It really shed a light on my grandmother's curandera ways and how they passed down to me, and reconnecting with that in myself through external experiences and working in industries like the natural skincare industry and the wellness industry. And it kind of brought me back to my roots and supported me through healing with nature and in nature.
Mm. Nature is just so powerful. So will you explain, I don't want to butcher the word you say, the practice that you was passed down through your ancestry, what that is?
So curandera essentially means a healer, and the A is the feminine version of it. And so my grandmother, which it's so funny, I hear all of these stories when I talk to people about the ways their grandmother has taught them healing, whether it's from a specific plant or if it's from a specific remedy or even just food that they cooked or the way they tended to their gardens and what they share. And so my grandmother was a curandera as well. She cooked healing foods. She knew healing remedies. uh, it's said about her that there's an ailment that she didn't have a remedy for, a cure for. So, really going through all of these roots has brought me back to understanding that and really knowing that that's in my DNA and in my hands. So it's a healer essentially.
Oh, so cool. That's really magical. And I wish, like, I personally am not connected to either of my grandparents, and I really wish I had that. And so but I love to see when people do, because one of my best friends, like her, she has an Italian lineage of like witches, and it's really cool to like just observe people that do. And I'm like, at least I can be that grandmother one day, but for now I can just look at other people. So will you share your journey of like the death of someone so close to you like that and how you've been able to work through that?
Ooh, um, it's a powerful question. I got goosebumps. So to answer that question of when my grandmother passed to the other side, I was really close with her on in the physical side. We share a lot of similar qualities, and we're just a lot alike. We're both Aries. We're both really heated, passionate people. And so we carried that on the physical side. And then on the other side, when she had passed over, I felt a really strong sense of her connection, and I felt her courage running through me and almost like whispering and giving me the courage and bravery to share a lot of knowledge that I'd been holding on to for quite a while. Holding on to because I didn't feel ready, holding on to because I think I was still collecting. I was still in, it was still in its like birthing phase of things. And as soon as she passed over, a surge ran through me. And that's actually the month after that I started, that I shared the website for Mariposa, and I started sharing journals and really telling people about the modalities and the curanderas and the healers that I'd learned from and about. So in terms of connecting, I think that even if you don't have a relationship on the physical side, or if they're passed over or if they're not, there's still so much there that can be gained and garnered from that wisdom. Um, there's so many different ways, and one of the ways that I still connect with my grandmother is through I have an aloe plant. I have several aloe plants, and she used to grow aloe, and they loved her so much, and they were always so healthy. And when you would have a burn or this or that, she'd cut off a piece of aloe from the plant and just give it to you to take you home with it. So there's so many ways I think that we can connect even when that physical passing has happened. And it doesn't mean that I don't miss her. It doesn't mean that I don't wish I could hug her, but I see her in my dreams. I feel her energy. I have an altar for her. So she's still very present in my life in physical ways and in esoteric spiritual ways as well.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful reminder. It's like I think, uh, yeah, just how we perceive death. We're like, they're gone. We make it such a separated thing, but it's like they're really still there, and it's just a different form. And noticing those little things that you can still like connect with, like the plant. That's so nice, and just feeling that like she's there with you, and that's so cool. She comes in your dreams, and I think that's a really great reminder. So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
And so did it get passed down? I've heard sometimes with like ancestral stuff, it like passes, like skips a generation. So does your mom have the same, or was it passed to you?
So I'm of the mind that I think we all have it. And I mean, everyone, like not just you know, each side. I think we all have these different gifts, but specifically with my grandmother, it was with the plants. And also, I would say like prophetic images and dreams. So my mother is more of, she has that really keen sense with dreams. She doesn't work as much with plant medicine, things like that, but I know that she has a strong intuition and a strong sense. I don't know if she'd identify that or see that, but I know that she'll have dreams of people being pregnant, and then a month later they're pregnant, or dreams of some type of loss, and so very visionary in that way, or psychic in that way. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes, I think we all have our intuitive powers too. So that's that. Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's really important, because we always seek to look in other people, but I'm like, I swear we all have something, and that's important to remember. And it all looks different. Like there's different categories, but you might not have the plant medicine connection, but yeah, you can have the vision or the hearing. And so, yes, thanks.
Definitely.
um, and with the plant medicine, what are some herbs that are good for grief? Yeah.
Um, the first one that came to my mind when you asked that question is mullein, which is actually known for the respiratory system. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the lungs are really represent the organ of grief. And so, again, the lungs represent the respiratory system and breath. And mullein really helps support with that. And it also is so interesting because it ties to like a lot of the wildfires happening, and the struggle with breath that a lot of us are having, and how tied that is to grief. So mullein is definitely one. It's still a plant that I'm getting to know, but that's the first one that came to my mind. And then also I'm thinking of herbs for the heart, because obviously our grief um, can also be held there and block us from being open to love and open to connection and kind of guarding our hearts. So rose could be a powerful medicine for grief. Um, One, especially thinking about my maternal lineage and some of the things that happened in that lineage. I'm of the diaspora, so I'm Puerto Rican, and um, those wounds there, I like to use motherwort for to support. So if you're someone that has, strenuous relationship with your mom, or strenuous relationship with your grandmom, or anything in that kind of maternal mother lineage, or even if you struggle with your own feminine energy within yourself, motherwort could be a beautiful tincture or herbal tea to work with. Um, so those are the two that are standing out to me right now, and rose, as I mentioned as well. I love a rose flower essence, and if you're not familiar with flower essence, it's essentially the energetic imprint of the rose, and it works on the emotional and the subtle body. And that's one that has been really powerful for me. So if you want to see through rose-colored glasses and you want to work with that heart space, that's a great one.
Yes, I think, and just rose in general, like who doesn't love a yummy that it smells so good too. So it immediately like softens me. And yeah, those are, thank you for sharing those. I think it's so nice to have a little extra support. And plant medicine is just, oh my gosh, I only discovered it maybe like 3 years ago, but when I really got into it, I'm like, this stuff is magic. It's so good. And there's herbs for everything. And I think that's really powerful to have that extra support. It's like, yeah, you can do the meditation, the breath work, the journaling, but like having that extra is really great.
So yes, everything you just said, and even not even necessarily having to take them, but even if you just watch a rose, and when as you were talking about rose, I was reminded too of the thorns. So you have that beautiful rose that everyone identifies with for love and all of those energies, and you think of the ancient Egyptians and how they used it for beautification and it's ruled by Venus and all that. But roses have thorns, so they also have a protective energy about them as well. So um, we can look to them and not even ingest them, but just look at them. And I also believe that we all have that connection in our bones and in our ancestral lineage. Like, again, going back to, I keep hearing these beautiful grandmother stories of like, oh, yeah, my grandmama grew lilies or this or that, and just like how that's all connected, and it's still there and available to us as well. And I think when we have that ancestral um, knowledge and upbringing, and it, even if we don't on the conscious level, subconsciously it's still there. So yeah.
Yes, that's a good point. I never even thought about that by like just looking at the plants. Like it's so true. And I guess I don't think about that, but when I always stare at plants. Like I love when I walk by plants, I'll stop and look at them, and that now it makes sense why I do that. So thanks for sharing that. I didn't even realize I was doing that. Um,
It's so natural.
it is so natural. Yeah, it's so natural. And I want to go more into your connection with plants and like how you get connected to them. And like also through the more recent years, I've learned like even drinking cacao, like talking to the plant, talking to the drink before you drink it, thanking the drink. Like there's a whole process instead of just consuming them. So I'd love to think about that a little bit.
Yes, I love that you brought that up. Thank you. There's so many ways to build a relationship with plants, and I'm personally currently building my relationship right now in a more meditative, plant spirit guided state. I want to shout out my teacher, Marisha Manowska. I'm in her School of the Sacred Wild apprenticeship, and we're doing plant spirit meditations. And I have been getting so much from them. And I've done them before, but not on this intense of a level and not as consistently. And for example, yesterday I meditated with a burdock infusion, and I introduced myself to the burdock root. I talked to it. I asked it to come and show me and sit with me. And I was getting visions of like a great grandmother sitting on a rocking chair, holding you and just feeling seen and loved for just being exactly who you were. And all of the plants have their own energy. I meditated with uh, passion flower and just received such uplifting, cosmic, universal guidance and support. So, one of the ways is definitely, I think, you can obviously, consume the plants, but I also think you can invoke those spirits in without even having the plant in front of you. Um, I have a friend who is an ecosomatics guide. Her name is Kalpana. We actually have a workshop together, and she guided us through this meditation. And we did not have the plant in front of us, but we had rose on the screen. And I smelled roses while we were meditating with it, and I felt the velvety smooth texture of rose on my skin. So I really point that out because some plants grow wild. Like I'm drinking nettles right now. Nettles is a wild weed, so it's beautiful if you want to consume a lot of nettles, but some plants are becoming endangered or this or that. So maybe we just call on the spirit of that plant, because they all have their own guides and elements within them that we can call on and ask to help us in our healing journeys.
Yes. And maybe someone's really new and are like, what are you talking about? Like there's spirits of plants. Like if someone doesn't understand, maybe I know it's like you have to be open-minded to even let it digest, but maybe just go into that a little bit more.
Absolutely. So I want to give reverence to, but not pretend that I am an expert or owner of this knowledge, but in Hinduism and other Eastern traditions, there is such things called plant devas. And the devas are essentially the spirit of the plant, so the essence of the plant. Um, and I don't even necessarily know that you have to believe that they exist to work with them. If you're open to trying it and you want to see it and something happens, great. If nothing happens, maybe you try again, or maybe it's not for you. I don't know. I can't necessarily dictate that. But I will say, as a spiritual person and as a healer, I think everything, if we can at least get on the same page that everything has energy to it, which I guess is physics and just the science of things, we can also understand that the plants are their own being and have their own essence as well. Just like we have multiple dimensions of ourselves, the physical body, the spiritual, etc. And I think more people are becoming open-minded to that. We can also understand that plants also are sentient beings. I'm reading a book right now. It's actually right next to me, The Secret Life of Plants by Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird. And they talk about experiments with the plants and the caretaker of them and how they are connected to them. They do polygraph tests and they have these scientific experiments that show that plants are also sentient beings and have an energy and subtle emotional body to them as well. I
Yep.
hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I already know it, but like I'm just thinking of like to someone, my past self when I wasn't into it. But now, like you said, energy is scientific, so people can tap into that at least. But yeah, I remember also hearing, yeah, there's been studies. It's like talk to your plant in a mean way, or have your plant in like a really toxic environment and see if it thrives, and talk it with love every day, and have it in a like peaceful environment, see what happens. And it's true. And it's like you can, there's that water book too that has that. And
Mm-hmm.
just like, come on, as yourself, like how does it feel when it's like negative? Like it all makes sense because we are nature. But yeah, I think it's
Absolutely.
really powerful to think about that. Like just even just being curious about like, wow, this plant has is living and like has, you know, its own essence. And it really helps you to be more delicate also with things around you and care more about the planet. Oh.
Yes, yes to all of that.
And so what's some of your favorite practices? Like, do you use herbs seasonally? Like, how do you incorporate plant medicine into your life?
It always changes so much, honestly based on the seasons, not only in my external world but also in my internal world. And I go through times where sometimes I'll take a break from it, but maybe I'm working with a flower essence, but right now I'm really into infusions because of school mainly, but they've been supporting me so much. I've been doing nettle infusions, which I'll be doing for the next month. And then at nighttime, I've been doing passion flower, which I'll also be doing for the next month. So, and also I don't like stick to anything so precisely. Like if I, need to switch it up or reach for something else, I'll do that. But I really think if I were to, share some words of wisdom with anyone else and in working with the plant medicine journey, I would say trust yourself. Trust that when you want a hot cup of tea, drink that hot cup of tea. Trust that when you don't want that hot cup of tea, you maybe reach for a flower essence or a tincture or just meditating with the herbs. I think it really is about where you're at in your life. And also the plants talk to us, whether we acknowledge it or not. They have their own language with us. And even in the digital world, I see it, which I think is so amazing because it's like this coming from, this very earth-based place to like the digital ethers and that whole portal there. But if you see a plant that comes up, I always say this, my number's 3. So if I see a plant that comes up 3 in my realm, in my physical realm and digital realm or whatever realms I'm working in, if I see it 3 times, I know that it's like, okay, Miranda. And that's just my rule with the plants. Like we have that established thing where it's because I'll see plants all the time because I follow so many and I go for walks in my neighborhood and look at plants. So there's so many that are communicating with me, but ones that I have like a 3-time resonant interaction with me, that's the one I want to work with. And yeah, I think trusting yourself, trusting the ebb and flow, and also you'll notice if you just start paying attention and start even saying aloud, like, I'm going to pay attention to you, plants. Like when you talk to me, it's going to resonate with me. just having that simple conversation can navigate through like the different practices.
I never have thought about how I see it on the internet too, and it's like, okay, these plants or this one plant keeps showing up for a reason, and I'm so excited to start exploring that in my life and seeing what that means. And so, for someone who might not have any connection, where can they find resources about like if a plant's coming up, where do they go to figure out more info?
Oh, yeah, that's such a good question. Um, Currently, I'm of the mind to spend time with the plant on your own. And that's like a maybe a controversial take because to ingest it, obviously you want to work with an herbalist if you're doing it in a medicinal way, especially if you have underlying conditions and are on medications, things like that. But if the plant's coming up, maybe just the first thing is say, "Hi, mugwort, I see you. How do you want to work with me?" And then pay attention. Try and be present and see what comes up in your life. But if you're looking for resources and tangible things, you can always go to mariposa-journal.com. I have a couple journals on plants there. And you can follow me on Instagram as well at Mariposa Journal. I'm always sharing about different plants and how we can work with them. But the first place I think you should start with is yourself. Yeah, and then from there, you can. I'm still an herbalist in training, and there are so many resources. I'm trying to think of like what would be a main one that I would go to. Um, I mean, I always love books and just starting to follow other herbalists. It depends the way you like to ingest the information as well. Um, but I also think it's like a thread line. Like once you kind of open yourself up to that, then the resource will come up. So I hope that helps in terms of resources. And of course, you can always just research on your own, aka Google. But um, I think you're the first resource, and then from there, following other herbalists like myself, and I also have some on my website, other herbalists that you can follow and look to. And there's school. I'm in school right now. Two schools. One is called Well of Indigenous Wisdom. The herbalist is Olatukombo Obasi. She's an Afro-Indigenous woman, and the other one I mentioned already, School of the Sacred Wild with Marisha Murnowska. So even just giving follows to people like that can support with resources.
Yeah, I think it's really important just with intuition in general. Like if you see an animal, someone that comes up, or if you're wanting an answer to a question in your life, like ask yourself first, sit with yourself first. I think that's something that's not said enough. And so I appreciate you doing that because it's like we are so much wiser than we give ourselves credit for. And you're like, but I've never talked about this. It's like, well, just start and that connection will grow. And with practice, it'll get stronger and it can only go up. So yeah, I think that's a great thing to be the foundation always. And there's, like you said, there's tons of books. Like it's sometimes fun just even go to the library and like there's gonna be a plant medicine book, like or go to a different library
Yes.
but,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, I recently just went to the library. It's so funny you mentioned that. And I was like sleeping on this great resource. But yes, definitely. And also, I think we give too much credit to external sources. So just reminding yourself that you have a internal navigation and intuition and guidance that you can also look to, and also know that the way that a plant speaks to me might not be the same way that it speaks to you, and the way that a plant wants to help me might not be the same way that it wants to help you. They're so multidimensional, just like us. So just remembering that it's not just one way or one sided, and keeping your mind open.
Thank you so much. And last thing would be if people want to start experimenting with some herbs or flower essences, what's a way to find that it's ethically sourced and yeah, just not like full of pesticides or something?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I can share actually a couple of the places that I get my flower essences from. One of them is called Resonance Apothecary. If you're familiar with Mariam Hasna, she has an apothecary, and I work with her flower essences. Um, Another one is called Zalish Medicines, but she is in Canada. So I don't know if you have any Canadian listeners. And then also, I just recently received one from an herbalist who was on my podcast. Her name is Leary, and she does these beautiful like oxymelds and flower essences, and it's called Potions by Leary. So I can send those links to you and have them below. So specifically for flower essences, those are three that I recommend. Um, and I think you just want to, check out people's integrity. Like, go to the about section when you're looking at herbalists or practitioners and see what their ethos is. Does it align with what you believe? Does it align with your practices? And also, uh, doing what's accessible to you, I think, is important because as much as like, yes, yes, look at the sustainability practices, look at the ethics behind it, but also find out what is available to you and how you can access that. For me, in the beginning of my herbal journey, going to the co-op and getting herbs sourced there was the best way I could start. So if you have any community or places like that in your neighborhood as well, it's a great place to start.
Amazing. Appreciate you so much and would love to know what offerings you have and how people can find you.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Offerings that I have coming up, I'm going to be relaunching my herbal tea blends in just right before the holiday season. I am also going to be launching a course in collaboration with Lauren, Woman of Rivers. She is a tarot guide, spiritual guide, and so much more. We're doing a course called Elemental Magic in the spring. So those are a couple offerings that I have coming up. Oh gosh, as well as I'm doing healing workshops starting January. I highlight different curanderas, and we do like about 1 hour workshops on their modality. So there's a lot. So just come visit me at mariposa-journal.com or on Instagram at mariposa-journal. Um, and if there's anything you want to connect with me on from this conversation, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much. I hope people go find you, and I definitely want to try out one of your workshops. Sounds so magical. I love learning about this stuff, and I love too that like it's something from your lineage, and I think that's just like extra potent. Not that it needs to be, but just like yes, it feels really exciting and good. And
Thank
the
you so
last
much, Lexi.
yeah, and one last thing, the outro question is, when was the last time you made someone smile?
Oh, I really like that. I made my boyfriend smile earlier today. That's it.
Amazing. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, we will make sure we put all those links in the post for anyone that's interested.
Thank you so much for having me, Lexi.